Good morning and good afternoon, everybody, and a warm welcome to all of you joining us today. My name is Dr. Abdullah. I'm the Director of Leadership Development at Knowledge Group, and I'll be your kind of host for today's very special session. Before we start, let me start with something many of us can relate to. At some point of our career, we've been told to think more strategically, but very few people tell us how to do that. What does it mean to become a strategic leader? And more importantly, how do you do it in a way that feels authentic, where you're not pretending to be someone else, but actually building on who you are. And that's exactly what we're going to be discussing today. It's not about uh, changing your personality, it's about capitalizing on it, understanding your strengths, your tendencies, and even blind spots, and learn how to use them to lead at a higher level. And guess what? Today's speakers have literally written a book on this. We're honored to have with us Dr. George Watts and Laurie Blazik, the authors of the book Becoming a Strategic Leader. Dr. Watts is a leadership psychologist and executive coach with decades of experience helping senior executives unlock their full potential. Laurie, on the other hand, brings a deep background in business, strategy, transformation, and leadership development. She holds an MBA and years of experience coaching top executives across sectors. Together, they offer a wonderful blend of science, strategy, and deeply human insights into how leaders grow from inside out. Now, before we start with Dr. George and Laurie, please allow me to take you through a few information about Knowledge Group. Knowledge Group is an Emirati company based in Abu Dhabi, and we focus on transforming leadership potential across the region. We work on 5 pillars. So we do the traditional training, we have assessments and assessment centers, we have consulting division, we have a division for digital learning, and we also have big mega transformational projects with the likes of UAE Army and Saudi Army. We've trained a lot of people around the world, and we are proud to say that Knowledge Group is the learning and development arm of a bigger umbrella called NEMA Holding. NEMA Holding owns Abu Dhabi University, Liwa University. We also, a few weeks ago, acquired Biz Group. So this family is happy and delighted to have you with us, and we're looking forward to working closely with you. Um, and with us also today is Go Learning. Go Learning is a platform that helps people in finding the best trainings for yourself. So it has tons, 10,000 plus online courses from universities and strategic partners like Microsoft, Google, Meta, IBM, and what's not. And with Go Learning, you'll have access to unlimited access to courses and platforms through Go Learning. If you want, please scan and claim your benefits from now. There are more than 4,000 short courses that you can access for free. Please take a second to scan the QR code if you're interested. And without further ado, in today's session, we'll hear about powerful insights on what separates tactical managers from true strategic leader. Also, we'll discuss how do we use our personality, the big five, as Dr. George always tells me, not ignore it to lead effectively, and how AI is accelerating self-awareness and leadership growth. Before I leave the floor to our guest speakers today, I want to tell you that throughout the session, there is a Q&A button at the bottom of the page. Please feel free to leave your questions, clarifications, suggestions, and what's not. We will be picking them up towards the end of today's session. Without further ado, it's an honor and a pleasure to have with us Dr. George and Lori. The floor is all yours.
Well, thank you, Abdullah. Thank you very much. And I just want to put a plug in for the Knowledge Group. They're a tremendous organization to work with. I'm just going to introduce myself briefly. As was stated earlier, I'm a psychologist by training, but I also was an executive vice president and CEO of a fairly large public company here in Chicago. So I've been a C-suite leader for many years, and our program is a fusion of both business and psychology. Lori, you want to tell them a little bit about yourself for a minute?
My background is in banking, and when I met George about 15 years ago, we began to collaborate pretty quickly on developing a leadership development and consulting and coaching practice. And our book was published 2 years ago by the American Psychological Association. We Our coaching principles are what George is going to go through right now. But the fusion of business and psychology is where we think leadership development should be moving. And so that's a lot of what we're going to talk about today.
I want to start off by giving several of our core principles that we think are important for executive and leadership growth. The first is adding strategic value by applying your strengths. And many of you are familiar with positive psychology and strength psychology, but we take it to the next level and ask, how do your strengths add strategic value? In other words, how is the outcome different because you're in the room applying your strength? And our program is all about and centers about how you add strategic value through your strength. So that's an important conceptual framework that will come back several times today. The second conceptual framework is don't change, grow. In other words, people don't like to change. If I said to you, this is all about changing you, there would be some internal resistance. But if I said to you, we're going to help you understand who you are when you're at your best, and we are just going to simply help you become more of that person. And that's our secret sauce. So we don't really believe in change. We believe in growth, understanding who you are when you're at your best and simply becoming more of that person. But unlike just pure strength psychology, it's the ego-driven shadow behaviors that derail careers. Every strength has a shadow, and the shadow is the immature aspect of the strength. So much of our program is psychodynamically maturing so that your shadows lighten. You'll never completely be enlightened per se, but you can always negate the shadow by a more advanced maturity. So we help you overcome the ego-driven shadow behaviors. And finally, the TLT digital coach, and we're going to talk about this, what it really does is collapse time. That the internet and the digital coach can help you accelerate self-knowledge. And the core of our program is accurate self-knowledge, and AI can accelerate that self-knowledge.
So TLT coaching, tactical manager versus strategic leader. Some of you may have been on our webinar earlier this year where we focused on career branding. So the first point here is know how your brand adds strategic value. Your brand is a short declarative statement of how your strengths drive unique strategic value. So because you're in the room, the outcome is different and better. So for example, my brand is empathetic energizer. Those are the two most accurate words to describe me. And my branding statement is I help people turn strengths into action. This branding statement was derived from going through the process that we outline in the book and also in working with the digital coach. So there's a cognitive struggle that comes with developing your brand and your branding statement and thinking accurately about who you are when you're at your best. The second point here is how strategic leaders really understand each of their team members and how they add strategic value. So this means understanding the unique strengths of each member of your team and how those strengths contribute to the whole. So you want to make sure that you've got the right people with the right talents and strengths in the right role to optimize the team result.
And finally, the transactional cycle. And this is why the American Psychological Association was so keen to publish our book. It's our original proprietary model. And it's a systems-based model we're going to present in a few slides. And it is very easy to understand. Everything we're going to say today is simple and easy to apply and understand. And if you'll understand this transactional model, it is a systems-based model that shows how personality structure can drive an economic transactional cycle. And once you see it and you can see the systems thinking behind it, you will think much more strategically. And like I said, it is a simple model, but a very, very powerful model. TLT Digital Coach accelerates self-discovery. Lori mentioned something that I think is important, that self-knowledge cannot be acquired through TikTok. Self-knowledge is a journey. It's a process. And the more accurate and deeper your self-knowledge is, the more evolved you're going to be. And the more evolved you are is when you've overcome your ego defenses and overcome fear, and you're going to think much more accurately. And so one of the things that we help leaders do, and we think is very important, is to think accurately. And the digital coach can accelerate that thinking. A couple of things about our digital coach that we like. Number one, it's 24/7. You can always engage with the coach. And so in between sessions, we give the client important, deep philosophical questions based upon their assessment and based upon our interaction. And then they go to the digital coach. They ask the digital coach those questions, and they begin to get accurate information about themselves through their own career brand and their own personality. Now, we also have 30 core questions that you just click on the questions, and the questions follow the content of the book. So the content of the book drives the experience, but the digital coach helps you understand this book and helps you relate the information to yourself in a very thought-provoking, accurate, yet simple way. Just a couple of one thought about a digital coach. A digital coach is never going to replace the one-on-one coaching dynamic, but what it can do is accelerate it. And I want to give you an example that that I want you to apply to yourself right now. Think about the last time you got angry. Think about the last time you got angry. And as a coach, I'm going to tell you that the reason you got angry is not the reason that you think you got angry. And once you discover that this statement, there's only two problems, the one that the client is telling you and the real one. There's only two problems, the one that the client is telling you and the real one. Once you understand that statement, you will make tremendous growth psychodynamically. And the digital coach cannot answer that question. Only a coach can bring the unconscious to the conscious and help you understand the deeper, real reason why you behave and think the way you do. However, once you understand that, you take a monumental leap forward. The digital coach can then help you accelerate your self-knowledge accurately. Finally, it integrates into the TLT coaching system. We have a system. We have a book in the audio book. We have the digital coach. We have the one-on-one. And now we're doing a lot of team coaching, so you have a team interaction. So our approach is a systems approach of reading, the digital coach, accurate assessment, one-on-one, and then the team dynamic. and it's a 4-month program, and it all comes together. And when you come in, and by the time you leave, you will have accelerated it, your maturity, and accelerated your leadership potential. Let's look at the big five very, very quickly. And this is a fascinating advancement in personality psychology. Personality psychology, if you look back in the history of it, it accelerated, and then it languished in the 60s and the 70s. And finally, there was a major discovery made that there's 5 core personality structures, and all other traits fall under these. And if you understand the big five, you're going to understand a lot about personality theory and personality modeling. And I strongly suggest that you do so. All personality tests now derive from the big five. And it's a powerful way to understand who you are when you're at your best, and a powerful way to understand other people and how to connect with people and how to resonate with other people. There's 5 core personality traits, and I'm going to get into it. I'm going to introduce the first 2. Now, each one of these traits is independent statistically. These are standalone traits, and they are meta traits. Now, one of the things we do with the digital coach is, like Lori said, through our career branding, we help you accurately understand the key words and the key phrases and the key ideas under each of these. But I want you, as we go through that, I want you to rank yourself. And what is your number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 trait? And at least at that point, you'll begin to have a broad path on which you can begin to think about your career. Let's talk about the open-minded personality just for a moment. This is who you might think it is. They are creative, imaginative, abstract, philosophical. A lot of musicians, a lot of writers, philosophers have an open-minded personality. It centers around creativity and creative thought and abstract thought. They're futuristic. They often are deep thinkers. Now, the shadow, they can be scattered, unfocused. They love to talk in big conceptual terms, but they forget how their words and how their vision can impact other people. So they can often lose people by not understanding how to break things down and follow up. A lot of times, if you've got the open-minded personality, if they've got low conscientious, you've got a problem. Okay, so that's the first trait. The second trait is the extrovert. The extrovert, and of course, this came from Carl Jung and Jungian theory that you all are familiar with. The extrovert fundamentally is energized by people. They're enthusiastic, assertive, bold. They tend to have more charisma. A lot of leaders spike on extroversion because they can sell well, and they can sell their way through life pretty well. Now, the shadow of it, they can be very moody. They can be very poor listeners. They can be thinking, and they can be quite impulsive. That gets them into a lot of trouble on occasion. And the extrovert can be charismatic, but they also can fail and derail because of their impulsivity. How about the next one?
So the next trait is the agreeable trait. And I want you to understand that no one trait is better than another trait. They are independent, but leaders can have all of these traits as their top traits. So agreeable is very familiar to me. That's my number 1 trait. We are relationship driven. We are empathetic. We are team players. We like to have harmony and calmness in our environment. The shadow of the agreeable can be a real derailer because agreeables tend to want to be liked. They have trouble saying no, and they can be conflict avoidant. They can also subordinate their own interests for the interests of other people, so they can be overly compliant. The next trait is the conscientious personality type. These are people who are thorough, dependable, organized, process-oriented. These are the people that are task-focused, efficient. They have lists. They check things off the list. These are probably your A students. So a very good example of the conscientious personality type would be a Hillary Clinton. She had 10 position papers for every issue when she ran for president here several years ago. The shadows of the conscientious type is something that we see pretty frequently. They can be perfectionists. They can be cautious, be concerned about making a mistake or being proved wrong, and be narrow-minded in their thinking. And the fifth personality trait, and these are in no particular order, is the emotionally stable personality. These are people who are rational, objective, level-headed under pressure. These are the people that you want flying your plane, operating on your heart. You don't want someone who is overly emotional doing those tasks that really need, a steady hand and steady thinking. The shadow of the emotionally stable type is, they can be overly judgmental. They can appear detached, and they can also be cynical and sarcastic and condescending. Okay, so what we have discovered is typically your top two traits in combination, the fusion of those traits is indicative of your success platform. So my top two traits are agreeable and extroversion. The fusion of those traits is where my natural strengths lie. So we want you to be thinking about that as we go through this process.
Yeah. Excuse me. Take a moment and just rank yourself. What is your number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 trait? And that'll give you a broad understanding of where you need to head your career and where you're going to add strategic value. Now, Lori and I began to look at how organizations stayed in business for over 100 years. How do organizations continually grow and develop? And then why do organizations fail? And I did a lot of work in venture capital where I saw a lot of organizations fail and I saw some organizations succeed. And some of our clients have been in business for over 100 years. So the question is how? How does an organization stay in business? And we, after looking at failure and looking at success over several years, Lori and I began to understand that there's 5 core phases of a business success. The first thing is what we'll call invention. If an organization is going to be successful, they have to uniquely differentiate themselves in the marketplace. The less they do this, the more commoditized they are. And the more you're commoditized, the lower your margins. And so the important thing here is how are you unique in the marketplace and what is your unique compelling message? How do you invent? The second thing that a company has to do to stay in business for 100 years is that they have to present their offer in the marketplace as many times as possible. Now, because of the advent of AI and because of Zoom and Teams and that type of thing, one-on-one personal selling opportunities are becoming less. And that's a whole nother subject that I think is worthy of a discussion. We're not going to get into that now. But a company has to make presentations. They have to present their offer to the marketplace. And the more they present their offer, the greater statistically somebody's going to buy that. So it would be sales, the presentation. The third phase has to be partnering. In any kind of dynamic, you're going to have conflict, you're going to have issues that arise. And the more you can partner with your client and the more you can partner with your customer, the better you can overcome those sticky issues and those conflicts. So the third thing that a company has to do is understand how to partner with their customers. The fourth thing that they have to do is deliver. They have to deliver on the presentation. In other words, a company has to deliver on the promises, on time, on budget. They've got to deliver what they promised to do. The fifth phase is assess. They have to assess the metrics. They have to assess the facts. They have to assess the EBIT. They have to understand, did they make money? How did they make money? What did they do well? What did they not do well? And through that assessment, what do? They reinvent. Okay. They reinvent and then excuse me, the cycle starts again of presentation, partnering, delivering, and assessing. So if a company is going to stay in business, it has to go through those 5 phases continuously. And here was the aha moment that we had several years ago, and why APA wanted to publish our book. And now the book is being used in doctoral programs in IO psychology because of this model. It turns out that the personality traits that we were talking about, excuse me, they are genetic. Fundamentally, your personality structure, and those of you all that have children understand this. You watch your children grow, and now our children are now adults themselves, but their personality structures, yes, they've matured, but your child's personality structure is genetic as yours is genetic. Now, it's not completely genetic. Of course, there's environmental dynamics, but these are core genetic factors in the human psyche. And the beautiful and the powerful thing about it is it doesn't make any difference where in the world you go. These 5 factors exist in the human psyche. And so, lo and behold, what we found out is there's 5 phases for success in business, and there's 5 personality structures that overlay perfectly with the phases. And this is what we mean by systems thinking. If you understand this model, you're going to be a strategic leader because you're going to understand the big picture. This is the big picture. And this is all the components that make up the big picture. The open mind invents. So if you have an open-minded person in the room, they're going to contribute the most to reimagining the future. The extrovert, they are natural presenters. Your sales team is going to be composed of extroversion. The agreeableness, like Lori, she made her money at JP Morgan through partnering. The agreeable personality has high emotional intelligence, and they have the ability to develop deep conversations to handle conflict. The conscientious, like she said, Hillary Clinton, they deliver. They understand processes, they understand detail, they understand organization, and these are in charge of delivery. The emotionally stable person is generally your chief financial officer, people that understand metrics, and people that take a cold, hard, rational look. So if you look at a big professional consulting firm, for example, our biggest client is the world's biggest a global professional firm. They have a strategy group. That's the open-minded. Then they have the sales team. Those are the extroverts. They have what they call the account managers. Those are the agreeables. They have a whole section called delivery. They even call it delivery. And then they have the assessment people that follow up, that understand the metrics behind what they're doing and reinvent. So this, we believe, is the most powerful, simple model that can help you think strategically. If you understand where do you add value on the model, take a look at your own personality structure. Then look at this model and say, where do I add the most strategic value on this model? And what kind of team do I need to build to fulfill our mission and to fulfill our hopes in the marketplace? So
And
this is our
I
model.
just and
Yes.
I just want to add here, everyone on this uh, uh, attending this webinar is smart, has a certain level of IQ and could be capable of performing tasks in each of these phases. But if something doesn't feel right about the role that you're in, if you feel overly stressed, think about your top traits and whether or not you're in the right phase of the transactional cycle. I always say just because you can do a job and potentially do it well doesn't mean that that's what you should be doing. So, in order to maximize your potential, you want to be in a role that's aligning with your natural orientation. So, this is a good visual image of that. So, George, I'll ask you to take this slide, but we broke down how we define strategic leadership, and there's five phases to this.
I'm going to just give you our definition
Yeah.
of a strategic leader. They orchestrate human potential into dynamic transactional systems. Look at the model. That is a dynamic transactional system. And in our opinion, what strategic leaders do is orchestrate human potential around this transaction. The orchestrate is the continuous arrange or direct the 5 economic transactional phases. As a tactical manager, you're only interested in solving problems and in addressing concerns. But a strategic leader has to drop back and see the entire transactional cycle from beginning to end, and how marketing affects delivery, how delivery affects the partnering. They have to understand where they add the most strategic value. Like, for example, when I was a CEO, I was brought in to drive sales and to develop the sales team because I'm open-minded, number one, extrovert, number two. I'm not that nice a person. Lori's much nicer. She's more agreeable. I'm not that conscientious. I'm not very good at getting things done. And my emotional stability is adequate. So, like Lori said, each of you, all of us have these 5 traits within our psyche. The question is, where do you peak? Where do you spike? And how you define that accurately. And that's where AI can play a huge role. For example, when we give people the thought-provoking questions at the end of the one-on-one, they can go in and then explore those questions with the digital coach. So this is our definition: orchestrate human potential into dynamic transactional system. This is a transactional system. It's a gestalt of interconnectedness, synthesis, and unity. So look at the model and understand where you add strategic value and what kind of people you need around you to make big things happen.
So I just want to give you an example. This model is a really important tool that we use in offsites where we bring senior leadership teams together to team build. And what we do is each person goes through that process of branding. They share their brand and their branding statement with the team, and then we place each person on the model so you have a visual image of how each person adds strategic value to the team. And when you do that, you can see where your strengths are with the senior team, but you can also see where gaps in that transactional cycle are. We recently had a situation where the team was talking about an occurrence, an issue that arose that kind of blindsided them, and they didn't really anticipate what was going to happen. And the president asked the question, well, who was in the room, when these events were taking place? And they named 3 people, and he said, aha, there was no open-minded person in the room when this situation occurred. And it was a big aha moment for the team, because what they understood was that there were 3 people in the room who were all seeing the potential outcomes similarly, and they didn't have that other personality type in the mix to be able to anticipate something that occurred. And I think it's the important takeaway for those of you who are in leadership is that each person will come at a problem in a different way based on their natural orientation and their personality type. You could give a team of 5 people with the dominant traits of each of the 5 the same case study, and they would come at the solution in a different way. And that's what we mean when we say strategic leadership, that you put the right person in the right role and have that person in the mix when big decisions are being made. Okay.
I'll just piggyback onto that. And there's a famous saying in analytical psychology that says, we don't see things as they are, we see things as we are. In other words, people will unconsciously project their personality structure onto the dynamic and then interpret it according to that personality structure. That's why 5 people can see the same thing and they'll have 5 different understandings and 5 different solutions. It's all a projection of their personality structure. The important thing is to understand who you are deeply and accurately, and understand your projection and understand how you typically go about looking at dynamics. And once you do that, you take a monumental leap psychodynamically. You begin to mature and you begin to listen more effectively, and your ego starts to subside, and you realize that what it really takes is an effective team. We don't see things as they are, we see things as we are. And understanding that statement is a very powerful way to understand how you add strategic value and how to look at life and look at business dynamics with a great deal of accuracy.
Okay.
We can go on and on about this, but we've got some time. We wanted to move through this quickly and develop some open-ended questions, and we can address them and hopefully provide some greater insight.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Dr. George and Lori. This has been amazing and eye-opening, and a few of the examples that you mentioned, I'm sure it did relate with me, and I'm sure did relate with others too. Now I have 5 questions so far. And I would like to urge colleagues or people with us on the call today, please utilize the Q&A button to add any questions, suggestions, thoughts that you may have. Now let's kick in with something fun. What's one surprising way AI helps leaders get to know themselves better?
I think certainly our AI, it's about the question. It's not so much about the answer, it's the power of the question. And what we do is we help people ask the right question. Because if you ask the right question, you will receive an accurate information from our digital coach. But you need the help of a coach to ask the right question. So to answer your question, Abdullah, it's a good question. Is the best, the thing I've learned about AI is the power of the prompt and how important it is to have an accurate question.
Yeah, that's 100% correct. I think that's the most surprising thing, because most of us will use AI to, just take in information from it, but we don't stop to think about it's really the questions that are asked, especially when it involves deeper thinking, about yourself and your strengths. So again, it's don't use AI or TikTok to gain intimate self-knowledge. It's much more about the cognitive struggle to get from here to there.
And the AI won't help you overcome your unconscious defense mechanisms. Only a coach can help you do that. But once you do gain insight into your defense mechanisms, the AI is a beautiful tool to accelerate that self-knowledge.
So if I were to paraphrase what you said, and please correct me, Lori and George, if I got it right. So with utilizing AI, I'd be able to, and the coach, I will be able to identify the barriers that are kind of preventing me from growing. And once I identify these barriers, the AI coach will help me cross over this kind of challenge. Would this be fair?
I think that is fair. I think it's accurate. I think the important thing that a coach does is help you think accurately and help you overcome the defense barriers that prevents you from thinking accurately. And again, once you have the right questions, then the AI digital coach does a beautiful job of helping you understand the answers to those questions. Because in our system, you come in and you do your career branding first, and all coaching then is highly individualized and personalized to your brand and to your personality structure.
So the coach knows you.
The
And
coach
so
knows
the
you.
coach is customizing its answers to you. And that, I think, is the key differentiator between us. And we started with the brand. We ask you a number of questions when you come in and create this branding statement. And so the coach has an intimate knowledge of you as you begin the journey of asking it additional questions and going deeper.
Amazing. Now, let's move to a question by Mr. Ahmed. He says, you talk about don't change, grow. Can you share how AI coach tools help leaders lean into their strengths instead of trying to fix weaknesses?
Again, I'm going to come back to the core of accurate thinking. And like I said, we don't believe in change. I think change is an illusion. We believe in growth, and that's becoming more of who you are when you're at your best. So we have 30 growth producing questions that follow our book perfectly. And all you do is click on the question, and the AI will give you a beautiful, detailed, accurate answer to your question based upon your personality structure. And it's all about growth. It's never about change. So I'm going to come back, and Laura, you can address this. I think what the AI will do is accelerate that growth through accurate questions and accurate thinking.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I just want to add, as it relates to weaknesses, our position on that is to, we go through a process of having you acknowledge what those are, identifying them. And then what do you do to lighten the shadow? Okay. The whole idea is to bring those weaknesses up to where they don't hurt you and then focus on the strengths. Okay. So whether it's perfectionism, judgmentalism, can't say no problem for the agreeable, the poor listening skills, the scatteredness of the open minded. We all have shadows that we need to work to overcome. And the first step is identifying what those shadows are. And then, being diligent. And that's where both the AI coach and the one-on-one coaching can be helpful in taking steps to lighten those shadows. But our focus is almost all, it's on how you leverage those strengths and put yourself on the right platform to add the most strategic value.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you so much. I've got um, I've got a question from Oslim. Uh, um, I have used many assessments before, and your model looks very practical. What is the best way to go deeper for self-awareness in your model? And then they continue, how can we become coaches in your model?
Well, not to be overly commercial, but buy the book, okay? Because we walk you through the model, we walk you through how to create your career brand, we walk you through how to assess your personality structure. But there are free tests on the internet. Type in, free Big Five tests, and you can go on our site, and we also have a test. So there are various personality tests out there that can help you understand where you rank in terms of the Big Five. We did not create the Big Five. The Big Five was created through longitudinal studies over several decades. Our contribution to the literature is in our economic transactional model and understanding why the Big Five exists. It's interesting. Nobody could figure out why the Big Five exists. They knew it existed in the human psyche, and then we offered our theoretical model on that the personality structure is actually an economic transactional cycle, and that was our big aha that got us some accolades here in America. In terms of how you can be a better coach using the Big Five, the important thing about being a coach is to be as advanced psychodynamically as you can. I came to the conclusion that I can only take a client as far in their maturity as I am in my maturity. So and I'm older than most people now, fortunately or unfortunately, but I've spent the last 20 years of my career trying to become more psychodynamically mature myself. Because the more mature I am, the more mature I can bring you on your journey. So this book will give you some insights and give you a structure and give you a model to understand yourself and to deepen your psychodynamic maturity. But if I had to give any coach a piece of advice, it would be continuously grow yourself, continuously understand yourself, because you can only take a client as far as you are. And if you don't continuously develop and deepen yourself, and that's another thing about leadership. When people come into leader in our program, they generally ask two questions. I want to take TLT coaching because I want to get promoted, or I want to, and what will derail me? Those are the two questions that people want to be addressed. But I think the most important question is, how do I grow to be the best leader I can be for the pure enjoyment and the fulfillment of being a leader? I think being a leader is really a gift from God. I think that you have the opportunity to help people on their journey. And so one of the things I want you to do is become a great leader for the enjoyment and the fulfillment that it gives you to be a great leader, not to get promoted. I was a CEO. I understand how people want to get promoted. But the most important thing I truly believe is the honor and the privilege of helping other people on their journey, orchestrating human potential. That's what I think great leadership is all about in today's world.
Yeah.
This is amazing answer. Amazing. Very deep, encouraging, and I think it corrects a lot of, or apologies for the word correct, but it helps us to look at the same question from a totally different lens. Amazing answer. Thank you so much. Now I have, please guys continue to add your questions in the QA section. We have an anonymous attendee. I didn't know that this is an option, but how deeply we are going to use AI in the coming 3 years? I think this is super broad, but I'll leave the floor to the experts to answer.
That's a great question. We're beginning to learn about AI ourselves through the digital coach.
Right. We when we started down this road, we weren't really sure how the AI was going to interface with our one-on-one coaching, how we were going to be able to optimize this tool. And it is a tool. It's, how much will we use it in the next 3 years? What I hope is that we don't lose, and again, this is my agreeable personality speaking, okay, that we don't lose that human connection and that deeper those deeper conversations that come from bringing that unconscious to the conscious, in terms of coaching and leadership development. You'll see a lot of tools out there, but beware if someone tells you that the tool is all you need. Because there's in our experience, it's way more complicated than just using an AI tool. I don't know,
And
George.
I don't know if AI is ever going to understand the unconscious. I think one of the great discoveries of Western psychology is the scientific identification and the understanding of the unconscious and the understanding of projection. And if I look at the unconscious and I look at projection, that's where the real growth of a leader makes. If they can understand that about themselves and understand who they are and understand how they project, AI can't help that. Okay, AI can't help that. So to take the unconscious to the conscious is going to be the role of a coach. At some point, if you say, well, AI is going to be able to do that, well, then I'm going to retire. because
Oh,
then it looks like I'm out of business at that point in time. So
Let me give you an example for those of you who are thinking, well, what's he talking about bringing the unconscious to the conscious? Okay, if you look at someone's LinkedIn profile, all right, you can um, often identify their top personality traits by the language they use to describe themselves. If someone talks about building relationships and collaboration, okay, chances are they're an agreeable. This comes back to that practical, easy to put into action component of using the big five to think about yourself and others. So people unconsciously project their personality in all different kinds of ways. The language they use, their approach to problem solving, and having an awareness of that really can help you understand in a deeper way how to establish more emotional resonance with people who aren't like you, to better understand the members of your team. You know, chances are you get along best with people who are most like you. Of course you do, because they're just like you and you like yourself. Okay. But if you think about where you have conflict, chances are the person is on the opposite side of the transaction cycle than you are. And so they're going to come at problems and at their day-to-day life in a different way than you. And the whole point of being a strategic leader is to have an appreciation of all those other personality types and to be able to navigate them.
I want to just come back to this one point the gentleman said about being a coach himself. The more you understand this statement, the better coach you're going to be. And the statement, I made it earlier. There's only two problems: the one that they're telling you and the real one. Now, a coach is needed to understand that statement, but once the client understands it, like I said earlier, think of the last time you got angry. I guarantee you that the reason you got angry is not the reason you think you got angry. And a coach can help you understand why you really got angry. And once you understand that, you take a monumental leap forward. That at that point, life looks differently to you. And that's what we try and do. And that's what I mean by the unconscious to the conscious, is to answer that statement. AI cannot help you there. But once you understand that statement about what's really driving you and then understand the accurate prompts, then AI is a marvelous tool that can collapse time and increase your maturity. This idea of self-knowledge has been around for the last several thousand years. On the Oracle of Delphi, they said, "What is it? Know thyself." So that's really what our whole program is knowing yourself. What AI can do is collapse time and get you there quicker and use the technology to improve human performance through self-knowledge.
Yeah, 100%. Lori, may I ask you to move to next slide? I think it has my email
Oh,
on
sure.
it. Yeah.
Yep.
So, Dr. George and Lori, I think you will like this. It's not a question, it's more of a comment. But I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing the name right. Purabi says, Dr. George and Lori, it's a delight to hear you so simplistically articulate what your book brings to life. I've had the opportunity to read the book and would highly recommend everyone who aspires to grow as a strategic leader. Amazing. Thank you so much, Purabi, for the note. I would be personally delighted to know the story. How did you come up to pick the book and what's not? Please leave a comment. Now, moving forward, I'm cautious about time. Which of the big five personality traits do you think leaders underestimate themselves?
Well, I'll just from personal experience, I think agreeables tend to underestimate the power of that collaboration and team building. We tend to get left behind because we're viewed as being too nice. So I think, to me, I think agreeables are often underestimated. But George, my guess is because we all project, you probably say open-minded people because they have the big ideas, but oftentimes, they're not listened to because they're, forward thinking.
Well, if I look back at my life and I look back when I was a leader, and I'm a leader of TLT coaching, but when I ran a fairly large public company, I was too egotistical. And I don't think I listened well. And I think that I thought that I was the smartest guy in the room. And what I've learned over life is don't be the smartest guy in the room, be the most mature guy in the room. And I think a lot of leaders think that they're the smartest guy in the room. And I think that's an illusion. I think that's a mistake. And so my advice is to understand that statement. Be the most mature person in the room, not the smartest person in the room. Let other people be the smartest person in the room. You be the most mature person in the room. Understand your trait and how you add strategic value, and understand the economic transactional cycle, and understand that your colleagues and people around you are needed to fulfill that transactional model, and that you're not the most important person. When I was a CEO, I thought I was the most important person. And that was a mistake. And I look back on that with regret. I wish I had had me as a coach. Okay. And I wish I had had this book. So there's not any one trait that makes an effective leader. And we spent a lot of time in psychology on looking at personality and what is the perfect personality to be a leader. It turns out any personality structure could be a great leader. It's psychodynamic maturity. That's the key. And that's what we missed in the 60s and 70s and 80s and in academic Western psychology, is the power of psychodynamic maturity. Not just
Yeah,
the trait, it's how the trait is matured.
and I just also want to make sure that I add that it's important to be on the right platform. So the open-minded person needs to be on a platform where that open-mindedness is paramount. Certain firms are all about delivery. Okay, so the best leaders for that environment would be those who are high in conscientiousness. So sales-driven organizations need the extrovert or the agreeable to partner with clients. So again, no one personality trait is best, but being on the correct platform to manifest those strengths is critical for your success.
And I'll just add a quick statement. There's nothing more frustrating than reporting to somebody with a completely different personality structure who doesn't
Yeah.
respect what you bring to the table.
Yeah.
And generally, those guys, they're projecting their own personality structure and they want you to be more like them, which is obviously a huge mistake. And what Lori said is very accurate. Finding the right platform to manifest your strength is critical. It's critical in life. And when you have somebody that you report to who doesn't respect your strength and doesn't value your strength, it's probably not going to work out. Not the way you want it to.
Dr. George, apologies for the interruption. We still have 3 minutes. I still have two questions, if you allow me.
Sure.
And I think the question is directly related to the statement you ended with. So how do you understand your personality shadows to help you lead a team more effectively? Exactly as you said, one person thinks in a way, and they expect others to think like them. So I'll leave the floor to you.
I think the first thing you have to do is recognize that the shadow is a part of human nature and to not feel defensive. And one of the things about our book is we allow you to look at your own shadow without defensiveness. It's the emotional immaturity. Certainly, I can experience this myself earlier in my life. I didn't look at myself as objectively, and I didn't consider my shadows as deeply as I should have when I look back on it. So to confront your shadow, the first thing you have to do is academically accept it and not be defensive about it, and realize when we put up our 5 traits, each one of those traits has a shadow. So look at your top trait and then look at the shadow that comes with it and say, this is a part of human nature. Don't personalize it. This is an area of growth for me, is to lighten that shadow. So the first thing I think you need to do is be objective with yourself. And I think our book and our methodology helps you with that objectivity. And a good coach helps you with that objectivity as well.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Manish, thank you for your comment. Manish Kumar is saying, great presentation. Now, for my last question, for someone stuck in the task mode between quotations, what's one thing they can do tomorrow to start thinking more strategically?
I think you look at our model and say, how do I add strategic value on the model? If you're stuck in a tactical role, step back and say, okay, how do I look at what I'm doing from a bigger picture perspective?
Mhm.
And how does my strength how does my strength add to that bigger picture? So look at yourself on the model and then say, I want to move to a more dynamic position, and then begin to understand how you need to move from a tactical manager to a strategic leader using your strength and using our model. Know the model.
Yeah, let me just add something here. Think about what you're doing when you lose track of time. Okay, and that is that's a clue as to something that you're doing that comes easily and naturally to you. And think about how that relates to your current role and or how you can move into a role that would incorporate being able to do some of those things. So, when you're in a more junior position, it's very difficult to tailor your job around your strengths. So as you move up in an organization, you'll have more flexibility and ability to do that. But I personally think it starts with understanding, what are you doing when you're in a zone state, when you lose track of time? That's where you're energized and excited, and that's where you're probably world class. So start thinking through those things and how can you, take small steps even to change your job profile. Can you delegate some things that are more task oriented? How can you think of big, again, with a model, a little bit bigger picture to move yourself into a position that's more aligned with your strengths?
Amazing,
And
Lori. Thank you so much. We're starting to lose some participants. So
okay.
before they go, I have two comments. I'm going to read them really, really quick. One says it's really great presentation and useful in all aspects of our life. An anonymous attendee again says, well done, sir and ma'am. I need a coach like you. I wish you mentioned your name so we can reach out to you and connect you with George and Lori. But as you can see in the screen in front of you, if you or anybody else would like to benefit from George and Lori, from their years and years of experience, from their models and all the rest of it, please feel free to reach out. We'd be delighted to speak with you, better understand your challenges, and together we can craft something that works perfectly for you as a person, and more importantly, for your organizations. A lot of people saying thank you so much. And Ziad says, we enjoyed and learned a lot of information from all the information presented, and we hope these lectures will continue and that we continue to follow them. Without further ado, Dr. George and Lori, we're already 3 minutes past our dedicated time. Thank you so much for everybody who kind of stayed and waited with us. And apologies for those who we couldn't answer their questions. And we look forward to hosting you with us very soon. Again.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Goodbye.
Bye. Take care. Bye for now.